Well, I am back, and it is January 1st, 2026. It's 11 o'clock p.m., straight up and down. I wanted to make sure that I was on time for my first broadcast of the year. Not that I wanted it to, start this late, but I'm here and I'm going to try to get this in 30 minutes. We're going to do what we need to do. Shout out to the mob. All my other bears, I call the grizzlies and the honey bears. So come on in, join me, grab a glass of wine, and we will see how far we can get. Now, let me come out to the comments real quick and make sure that the sound is good. We've got both of my moderators. And thank you so much for being here. If it runs too late, which we're not going to run this late tonight. No, no, no. That's what happened last night, So I'm going to try to get this in. You may not have 4 people watching. You may not have 4 people watching. Should I wait? Because I think it's important to, explain a couple of things. We're going to call this one D for disinformation. I see baby Juju. How are you? And Vicky Black. Come on over to the Bear Cave. Maybe people aren't getting their notifications. Yes, make sure you turn all notifications on. Right. All right. So I think we've got enough folks in here now. Let me just say this. Yeah, we made it over. I told you this year it's about focus and precision. I've had a good day. I really have. And I hope you have too. Mm-hmm. So, moving forward, we're going to try to get some things right. And I'm going to try in the best way that I know how. So let's go ahead. Calling this one Analyze This Mess, D for Disinformation. Because tonight we're dealing with a word people love to throw around when it suits them and panic about when it doesn't. That's disinformation. Yeah. Which disinformation is not disagreement. It's not opinion. It's not, I heard something in a chat and ran with it. Disinformation is when someone repeats a claim that is factually false, legally consequential, and kept alive even after it's been shown to be wrong. And that's exactly what's happening here. The claim being pushed is this: that Danielle Robertson was ordered to reveal her identity because she was not served. That is false. The judge did not order identity disclosure because of service. Courts do not punish people for not being served by forcing them to identify themselves. That would make no sense. No service means no jurisdiction, and no jurisdiction means no order, period. So now let's ground this in reality, because reality still matters here. The disclosure order exists because Danielle appeared, participated, and sought relief from the court while refusing to identify herself. Once you do that, anonymity is no longer a shield. It becomes a procedural problem. You don't get to file papers, argue positions, influence outcomes, and then say, but don't ask who I am. That's not how due process works. That's not how courts work. And that's not how accountability works. So when someone keeps repeating that this disclosure order is about service, they are not just wrong. They're misrepresenting the court's authority and the basis of the ruling. That's why this matters, because disinformation isn't harmless commentary. It reshapes the narrative, it confuses the public, and it undermines trust in how courts actually function. And here's the tale: if the claim were true, the courts wouldn't have had the authority to issue the order at all. The order itself disproves the talking point. So, no, this isn't a difference of interpretation. It's not a gray area, it's not debatable. It's disinformation. And tonight's lesson is simple. If you're going to explain a court order, read it. If you're going to repeat a claim, make sure it survives logic. And if you don't know, say that instead of filling the silence with friction. That's tonight's Analyze This Mess. It's D for disinformation. All right, so let's see. It's 11:09. Of course, I'm going to pull up the ECF 74, maybe some of 75, and perhaps some of 118. I think it's important to set the ground rules with the documents. All right. I'm just going to give a big, blanket hello to everyone. And I don't know if I will be looking at the chat or not. I may do that if I set it up quickly enough. Wow. And you see, 3 days, 17 hours, 19 minutes, and 32 seconds. All right. Monday, we're going to call that D for day 0. Okay, let me just throw up my banner real quick. Move things around. Get rid of this. Please be patient. I have it set up. Pretty much. Let's see. Hang on. I was working on some things. Let's see here. Oh. Hang on. Okay. $74. All right. We're going to start with ECF 74. And this was the one that I wanted Maggie to start with. This is what I put up. All right. And this one was called Order Directing Alternate Service Extending Summons and Resolving Miscellaneous Motions. We're going to skip past John Doe's motion. And let's just see how quickly. Let's see if I can just get to, because of the time. B. C. D. All right. This is on page, this is the ECF number 74, page ID 780. It's the part alternate service extending the summons. Rule 4M provides that if a defendant is not served within 90 days after the complaint is filed, the court must dismiss the action without prejudice against that defendant or order that service be made within a specified time. But if the plaintiff shows good cause for the failure to serve, the court must extend the time for service. Emphasize, added, for the reason discussed in the report and recommendations regarding alternate service. Evans has shown good cause for failing to serve. The court thus extends the summons and time to serve until October 8th, 2025. By that date, Evans must serve Robertson at her email address, DannyMontana2022 at gmail.com, with copies of summons, complaint, the R&R, and this order. Evans must also file a notice with evidence confirming that email was sent. That's after the show cause, the attempts to have served her, all right, that the magistrate judge ordered this service by email as the alternate service. Let me see. Do we see the comments? For some reason, I don't see your comments. Now I can see them. All right. I'm not here to argue as much as just rely on the facts and also tell you that this is not about the service right now. You'll see as we go along. Service on this defendant, Daniel Robertson, has already been executed. She has already been served by her email. With the summons, with the complaint, with this order, with the R&R. All right. Because she had been evading service. And finally, the judge made this decision, made this ruling based on the law, based on her authority to serve this defendant. That was at issue. All right. Let me go on. Okay. Let's go to ECF. Well, you know what? Let me just roll this up because let's go to this part. Robertson's anonymity. So, what are we talking about for Monday? for her to identify her legal name and postal address. This issue of anonymity. Evans moves to strike Robertson's filing and to compel disclosure of her identity and address. That was, let me go back, ECF. $36. Which was, I'm looking at Pacer. Hang on. That was the first motion to strike. Hang on. And we have ECF, let's see, 41, set aside 42, 51, 56. That's it. Let me see if I can just pull this over. All right. I filed this on May 16th. This is ECF 51. Plaintiff's supplemental motion to compel disclosure of identity and confirmation of address used by Jane Doe, purportedly named as Daniel Robertson. I made a request to the judge to compel identity back in May. All right. And this was a supplement to that original motion that would have been, I believe, ECF 50. Let me hang on for a second. Try not to get into the weeds. This motion is necessitated by defendant's continued efforts to obscure her legal identity and evade service through the use of aliases and potentially fictitious business addresses. After previously denying that she was properly named in this action, the individual using the pseudonym Jane Doe subsequently began filing documents under the name Danielle Robertson without explanation, correction, or verification. Let me just move on from this one and go back. Just trying to set the groundwork here. I'm looking at the time. Hang on. Throw this back up. The next one, this is from ECF 75. Page ID 824. This is having to do with an argument, and this is the report and recommendations by the magistrate judge Stafford. Robertson also argues that Evans fails to state a valid claim, ECF number 39, page ID 348-350, in the absence of proper service of process, consent waiver, forfeiture. A court may not exercise personal jurisdiction over a named defendant. It cites a case. And without personal jurisdiction, a court is powerless to proceed to an adjudication on the merits. Until Robertson is served, the court cannot address the merits of the claims. Thus, her motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim should be denied without prejudice. Let's see here. Let's go one up. All right. I think this is it. Just before that one. Although Evans does not expressly seek alternate service, her arguments may be construed as making that request. Evans argues that her efforts to serve Robertson have been frustrated because Robertson is evading service by hiding behind multiple aliases. ECF numbers 64, page ID 561 and 570. Robertson admits that Danielle Robertson is not her real name, and it is undisputed that she uses multiple aliases even for transacting business with her registered agent, which is a registered agent at that time. She has also intentionally sowed confusion regarding her address. Robertson used the ARA's registered agent's service and used Dover address as her mailing address. She then canceled those services but continued to use the Dover address until recent, which is that address in Sheridan, Wyoming. Okay. As Evans points out, another registered agent operates from this address, an agent who services a troubling number of illegitimate businesses. And then it gives another reference to ECF number 51. Under Michigan law, if a plaintiff shows that service of process cannot reasonably be made, courts may authorize service in another manner reasonably calculated to give the defendant actual notice of the proceedings and an opportunity to be held. Michigan Circuit R2 105. Evans has shown that she cannot reasonably serve Robertson as her legal name is unknown. And although substituted service typically requires the servicing party or serving party to show that she has made diligent search for an absentee defendant, Evans cannot locate Robertson without her legal name, which has been well concealed. In cases where defendants have conducted businesses or business online via email or other electronic means, courts in this circuit have permitted service of process by email and other alternative methods. Then it cites these cases. Because Robertson has because Robertson already has actual notice of litigation and has included her email address in her filings, service of process at that email address, Danny Montana 2022 at gmail.com, is reasonably calculated to give her notice of the proceedings. As set forth in another order, Evans must serve Robertson at her email address by October 3rd, 2025. Evans must file a notice with evidence confirming that email was sent by November 3rd, 2025. Robertson must file a notice identifying her legal name and postal address. We know those dates have come and gone, but service of process on this defendant has been made. I have certified it. I have confirmed it that the email was sent. With a lot of, data to support it, that it was received. All right. The defendant has been served. Let me just think about how I want to say this. Let me just read this part. Once Robertson's legal name is known, Evans must amend the complaint to reflect the correct name. All right. Let's see if I can go to 118. Hang on. Also, this was signed by the District Judge Judith E. Levy, and that is ECF 112. It was the order adopting the report and recommendation from the magistrate judge. Before the court is Magistrate Judith Elizabeth A. Stafford's report and recommendation recommending that the court set aside the clerk's entry of default and to grant in part and deny in part defendant's motions to dismiss. That's ECF 28 and 39. The parties were required to file specific written objections, if any. Let's see, let me just get to this part. The report and recommendation, ECF number 75, is adopted. So, what was in ECF 75, and I read part of that had to do with alternate service, that was adopted as well. Okay, let me see if I can go to 118. All right. Now, let me throw this back on. You don't need to see all the tabs. Okay. Let's go to this part. And Maggie was reading from this ECF 118. These are, let's just go up here. Tell you what 118 was, okay? Or is. Before I go to that section. This was the order overruling defendant Danielle Robertson's objections to the magistrate judge's Stafford's order 74, okay, and denying as moot defendant's emergency motion to stay, overruling objections to the magistrate judge Stafford's order striking another ECF 83 and 87, and denying her motion to submit video evidence. So the district judge was going through these objections one by one and overruling what Danielle Robertson's argument was in the objection. And Maggie kept saying, she's arguing, the defendant is arguing, but she's arguing. What she didn't point out enough was that her arguments were overruled. It's not just sufficient enough to make an argument. But let's go to this one. Wait a minute. Sorry if I'm rolling that so fast. Trying to get through this. And respectfully, One objection that was made by the defendant. Let's see. I wanted to start it at E. Objection, this is C, related to Michigan court rule. So next, defendant argues that Judge Stafford's order permitting alternate service is contrary to Michigan Court Rule 2.105J, which defendant believes strictly governs substituted alternate service. Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 4E1 provides that an individual may be served. I heard earlier that she has not been served or that it's not proof. Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 4E1 provides that an individual may be served by following state law for serving a summons in an action brought in court of general jurisdiction in the state where the district court is located or where service is made. In Michigan, where the district court is located, an individual may be served by delivering a summons, a copy of the complaint to the defendant personally, or sending a summons and a copy of the complaint by registered or certified mail, return receipts requested, and delivery restricted to the addressee. Michigan Court R 2.105A. Service by registered or certified mail is only complete once the defendant acknowledges receipt of the mail, and a copy of the return receipt signed by defendant must be attached to proof showing service. This is argument. The Michigan court rules also permit the court to approve alternate means of service. Michigan Court Rule 2.105 provides on a showing that service of process cannot reasonably be made as provided by this rule. The court may, by order, permit service of process to be made in any other manner reasonably calculated to give the defendant actual notice of the proceedings and an opportunity to be heard regarding requests for alternate means of service. Michigan Court Rule 2.105J2 states a request for an order under the rule must be made in a verified motion dated not more than 14 days before it is filed. The motion must set forth sufficient facts to show that process cannot be served under this rule and must state the defendant's address or last known address, or that no address of the defendant is known. If the name or present address of the defendant is unknown, the moving party must set forth facts showing diligent inquiry to ascertain it. A hearing on the motion is not required unless the court so directs. The court finds that Michigan Court Rule 2.105J2 was adequately followed. On May 16, 2025, plaintiff filed a supplemental motion to compel disclosure of identity and confirmation address used by Jane Doe, ECF number 51. That was the first one I read from. In support of this motion, plaintiff filed a declaration in which she declared under penalty of perjury that the Sheridan, Wyoming address appears to not be suitable for service because it is linked to shell corporations, fraud reports, and service evasion schemes, and that plaintiff is unable to ascertain defendant's identity or true address for service. That's at page ID 491. Although plaintiff's motion itself is not verified, plaintiff's declaration is sufficient because it, like a verified motion under this rule, is a sworn statement that sets forth sufficient facts to show that process cannot be served under Michigan Court Rule 2.105. Further, defendant's identity is unknown to plaintiff, as acknowledged numerous times by defendant herself. ECF number 82, page ID 1127, describing herself as improperly named Danielle Robertson. At page ID 1143, describing Danielle Robertson as non-existent entity. Defendant's argument that Michigan Court Rule 2105 requires a supporting affidavit which or with specific facts showing due diligence at ordinary methods, which is personal service or restricted delivery certified mail to the proper addressee, includes dates, times, locations, process server attempts, skip traces, postal inquiries, etc., is unsupported by citations to authority, and these requirements do not appear in the language of the rule itself. ECF number 82, page ID 1138. Finally, it is not clear how an attempt at ordinary methods of service could be made when defendant's identity is unknown. Thus, defendant's objection related to Michigan Court Rule 2.105 is overruled. Objection related to evasion narrative. Defendant, or D, defendant also objects, on the basis of the evasion narrative fails. Alias does not equal concealment. So here she's trying to argue that because she has an alias or has used alias, that doesn't mean she's concealing or trying to evade. She says non-existent LLC does not equal organization in her filing ECF number 82, page ID 1138 through 1139. In this objection, defendant argues that plaintiff knew that her previous attempts at service were unsuccessful, that the use of multiple aliases cannot be construed as proof of evasion, and that information related to her use and or cancellation of a registered agent in Dover, Delaware is legally irrelevant. Defendant's objection does not demonstrate that Judge Stafford's order is clearly erroneous or contrary to law. As set forth by Judge Stafford in her order, Robertson has used several aliases and addresses to evade service. Robertson cannot have it both ways. She may not use anonymity simultaneously as a shield to protect her privacy and as a sword to undermine litigation. That's in ECF number 74, page ID 778. Hang on. Defendant's arguments that plaintiff's attempts to serve her alias Danielle Robertson and non existing LLC are not diligent, but a pretext to create a record for alternate service or harassment because plaintiff was aware of these entities did not exist, that defendant's use of many user names was not an attempt to evade service. Again, this is her argument, defendant, and that defendant's prior use of a registered agent is irrelevant and not well taken. Plaintiff is required to attempt to serve defendant, and it is not clear how plaintiff could have legitimately served defendant's correct identity when defendant's identity is unknown. Additionally, it is not clear why any of these arguments entitle defendant to avoid service. So here again, just quickly, so she's arguing why she really shouldn't be served in this alternative manner. All right. Defendant is not permitted to willfully evade service of process, and it gives a citing. As such, defendant's objection is overruled. Objection related to service to defendant's email. Again, another argument. Defendant argues that Judge Stafford's order authorizing plaintiff to serve defendant by sending the complaint and summons to defendant's email, DannyMontana2022 at gmail.com, is not reasonably calculated to give notice according to due process principles. Pause. I think that should be obvious. Her argument basically saying it's the plaintiff can't give me actual notice by my email. Okay. In support of this argument, defendant continues to argue that plaintiff is acting in bad faith and that plaintiff's attempt to serve defendant via email would be performative harassment. Like, don't allow her to serve me by email. She's only getting that, or you would only be giving that to the plaintiff because to harass is performative. Although, keep in mind, there have been multiple attempts to serve this defendant. I keep stressing serve. She has been served. Not that I have to, and I didn't. Maggie isn't arguing for me. She is not my attorney. She can read, she can have her opinion, and all of that. I'm pro se. But when it comes to something legal and it's disinformation or is being repeated over and over without understanding or reading everything or knowing why the service has been evaded and why alternate service was allowed. I was the first. My judge allowed, put this in the order, ordered me to serve her. Ordered me to serve her by her email. Sorry that I know you can hear me. Sorry, I'm shouting. She was ordered. She ordered me to serve her. I served her. She said, when you order, after you serve her, show me proof that you served her to her email. That's acceptable. Why? Here in this order, here in this objection, this defendant is arguing over and over different arguments she's presenting. I can't be served like this. She can't do this. She can't do that. You have to do this. You have to do that. And she hasn't done this. The plaintiff hasn't done that. The judge, magistrate, the district judge agreeing with her and then giving her opinion against these objections to the magistrate judge. So because somebody is reading this and waving their hands and saying, well, she keeps arguing. Yeah, she did keep arguing. She is not the authority. Don't give her that kind of power. But she's going to keep arguing. Yes, that's what she does. She's the defendant. But the district judge and the magistrate judge, they are the authority. Let me continue on this one. Defendant argues that Judge Stafford's order authorizing plaintiff to serve defendant by sending the complaint and summons to defendant's email, DannyMontana2022 is not reasonably calculated to give notice according to due process. So she's saying, no, I'm not getting my due process. If I'm, attempting to send this complaint and summons to my email. In support of this argument, here she comes. Defendant continues to argue that plaintiff is acting in bad faith. You mean bad faith after I've tried all kinds of ways to serve her with a process server? Paid that one. Send it to this address, that address. Yes, she's going to say, I'm not, I didn't get it. She's been evading, changing locations, changing aliases, changing addresses. This name, that name, I'm not here, I'm not there. I can't serve her. I've done a diligent search. I have tried months and months. Pushback, show cause, once, twice, 3 times. This is the part. This happened last year. This was the groundwork leading up to the magistrate judge allowing or saying, order. You've exhausted this. Here's another way that I can allow you to serve this defendant that has been evading service. Run away. So here she's saying in her support, it's bad faith. The plaintiff attempts to serve defendant via email would be performative. Defendant's argument is unrelated to due process and therefore fails to demonstrate that Judge Stafford's order is clearly erroneous or contrary to law. Again, defendant is not entitled to evade service. Defendant's objection is overruled. That's the part. We're past service. There's a reason also why her identity should be disclosed. One, I asked the judge way back in May for her to identify, because she's been participating, arguing. We're at ECF number 124. So she can litigate and evade and do all of this while remaining anonymous? There's other things that could be said. It's midnight. There is more that can be said, because we can talk about why Monday, what that's about, why jurisdiction, and why this case moving forward, and why procedure, and a lot of other things. But the one question I could have asked, but not that I would use your opinion, but if someone is saying that the defendant, she's arguing. She hasn't been served. All right, so let's hear what you got to say. What would happen in your mind, in the way you're looking at this? Anyone, if they agree that she hasn't been served and why she's supposed to, why she's been ordered to give her identity and her address, if that's for service. What happens next? Tell me how that's going to roll out. How is she going to be served? Sounds like to me, some people are thinking, oh, so we're waiting for her name and address so that I can send the summons, the complaint, the R&R, the order to an address. So that's going to be service? Is that what people are thinking? And so if she doesn't do that, I don't know how deep I want to go into this, but what actually triggered, or the judge, as I said, didn't order disclosure because of service. Service is not the trigger. It never was. Courts don't say you weren't served, so now reveal yourself. I said that earlier. what triggered the disclosure, and you've heard what I've read too, is that Danielle Robertson, the defendant, appeared and participated in the case. She has sought relief from the court while hiding behind an alias. She made representations, filed papers, influenced proceedings without putting a real accountable name on the record. So the court didn't order identity disclosure because of service. The order was issued because Danielle Robertson appeared, litigated, sought the court's protection while refusing to identify herself. That's a due process issue, not a service issue. And that also prejudices the plaintiff. It's New Year. It's the 2nd. There's more that can be said, but I think I've said quite a bit here tonight. Let me go here. If this was said, I listened to most of it. I did. It's not me, says Juju. Maggie initially said today that Kimmy has served Danny, but Teddy hasn't. I heard her say that, not tonight as much. I've heard her say that before. That was wrong. 2, I'm just blatant. Yeah, because one of the things that she said is that Kimmy's judge had, given her that she could serve her by alternate service, but Teddy's judge had not. You didn't read the order. Absolutely, you didn't read the order to understand it. And if you listened closely tonight, you would have heard me say or understand now the groundwork, the work to get it to the point where alternate service was made in my case first, then Kimberly Smith petitioned her judge for alternate service referencing my case. Her judge, seeing what has happened in my case, they've already gotten a preview. It's like they can look and already see what has happened. The work that I did. All the filings. Plus, I asked to compel. I did that. Not to say me, but to say I did it in a way that's legal. I put the motion before the judge, before the court to compel. You saw it back in May. And I was poo-pooed by many people saying, and I have the recordings, you don't need to know who she is. Why do you want her name and address? You're going for the wrong things. The judge is gonna shut you up. She's barred you. She doesn't want to hear what you gotta say. You're wrong. And now people are waiting. Why? Everybody's talking about the name and waiting. The legwork, the work, that sweat equity, that going back and forth to clear the way. You need to have the identity. This is jurisdictional. There are other things around this to move forward. Remember, it was service and jurisdiction. Both have to be met. And this defendant knows that. It's shown in the record. The court knows what's going on. I can't tell you what will happen. I can't even tell you for 100% sure what's going to happen on Monday. But right now, the judge has made the order for the 5th of January by the 5th of January. We've had 3 dates now, and the judge just struck the motion to stay, struck reconsideration, struck another motion, struck. It's done. That's done. I don't know what else she could pull up out of the bag to present, but the judge wants her name, her legal name. The court needs it. And her address. So I know who I'm dealing with, who is on the record, who. This name is important. That's part of it. So that's part of the disinformation that I'm talking about. Out of, respectfully. But it's frustrating when I hear that. And people are running with it. When that is not the case. Now, what she's going to do and all of that. People are making predictions and doing this and that. It's a process. This is a new year. Thank God. But I said this year, even this morning in my prayer, it's going to be about focus and precision. Because we've had a year where we made some mistakes, where we cut our teeth. Yeah. Now, someone coming behind this case, they have the benefit of seeing the mistakes, and that's good to know what they're dealing with. Why do you think the judge down the hall put my case number in the upcoming? Yeah. It's a precedence. We're dealing with the same defendant. It clearly gives an advantage in some way that you have sort of a hindsight without being able to create that hindsight. But you have the history from someone else. Just like lessons, if we can learn them from other people, it can, give you a shortcut, it's called in life. Maybe mistakes that you don't have to make. And that's good. It's not about competing within our own circle of, at all. And I really don't see it that way. But I heard a person say they want to get to the truth tonight. Well, if you want to get to the truth, then it's about even myself recognizing if I'm right or wrong in something, or open to the possibility that it's another way. And maybe I want to listen to that. And God forbid, if I'm wrong on something, I always leave that as a way to say, look, I got it wrong. This is what I went on. This is the facts. This is what I relied on to make my decision. I can be corrected. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. It doesn't. You're not going to know everything. I don't know every profession. I don't know everything. So I can be wrong, is what I'm making my point. And I can learn from someone younger. I can learn from someone younger. And someone younger can learn from someone older. Yeah. It's all a part of it. It's 2026. Hi, CV Love. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat tonight. It's 12:18. We're definitely going to finish up here in a few minutes. Yeah. But I want people to know that what I talked about tonight, I welcome a difference of an opinion. However, on facts that are consequential and legal that I understand, that's something that needs to be near to truth, right? All right. Yes, struck, poof, gone. It's not just about money. That's just compensation, accountability, and consequences. That's what it's about for me. Accountability. There's a lot in these arguments, some that I haven't read as thoroughly. And there's a lot of work ahead of us for 2026. So I got to get busy. And I got to be prepared for whatever comes my way. And I don't know what's coming my way. I don't. But I want to be within the law. And everybody is welcome here in the Bear Cave. Yeah. We can debate. Yeah. Vigorously. Debate to, right to the mat. Yeah. You can agree without being disagreeable. Yeah. That's it for me for tonight. Yeah. Biggest bear hugs go out to all the grizzlies and the honey bears. You can email me at unwinewithteddy@gmail.com. Let me look real quick. Oh. Okay. All right. I see your email now. Um, my apologies if anything was overlooked in the chat. Check out Unwind with Teddy's community wall update. Great live. Thank you so much. Again, I tried to go through this as quickly. And why would they want to even make fun? Because you want the identity. Yeah. Oh, there were a bunch of door knockers and naysayers. A bunch. Said, yeah, you don't care about that. You just want to go for money. It's accountability. How are you going to do all that? Explain. Some things don't need to be explained as thoroughly, but sometimes after so much, you just want to do that. Happy New Year, all. I'm hopeful those of us who are originally ourselves unconditionally will finally have our time to shine. I didn't even finish your second half. It's not me, said Maggie initially said today that Kimmy has served Danny, but Teddy hasn't. That didn't make any sense, which is why I kept asking her to explain her statement. Something is off, but I'll stay. Yeah. I mean, if she served her through her email, then certainly you can just draw an inference there, but maybe it's people didn't understand. Thank you for thoroughly reading the court documents, although there were no need to. Most of us, let's just start off the new year with a little bit of grounding. And again, my apologies in advance. I didn't drink as much Gatorade while I was reading, so yeah. Yes, arguing. Yes. Happy New Year. Okay. And so, Deb, hey, what's this? Teddy, can you please hear her again? Is that okay? All right. Yeah, that was from a video. Happy New Year. Hear her, TV, and to all of you. I want to talk to Teddy and hear her. Okay. Maybe on a panel together. That would be great. All right. Yeah, tomorrow. Again, thank you for the super chat, V Love, and all of you. And thank you for your interest in this case. And thank you, everyone. I think you're going to find out, even if someone is hedging and nudging and thinking that this case is should have been dismissed and it doesn't make sense and it's this and that. I think you need to take a look. There's 125 ECFs. There might be something in there you missed. All right. Thanks, everyone, for supporting Unwind with Teddy. And thank you, even Maggie. Happy New Year to you. I've said it to everyone. All right. That's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Teddy. It's time to say good night.